Stay there. Do not come anywhere close to us. I'll consider you obstructing us. You can be under arrest or detained. Do you understand that?
Is obstruction physical?
Your ridiculous questions are so annoying. I'm not going to entertain that.
What's Section 3 of the Canadian Charter of Rights and Freedoms?
End of story.
What's Section 3?
Hello, citizens. Well, after months of trying to reach out to James Topp for an interview or just to answer questions on his Twitter about what's going on, venue cancellations, all that stuff, I don't know, maybe he lumped me in with Anti-Hate Network because I was asking questions about what they were doing before he had announced who they were and what they were doing. I had no idea who they were or what they were doing. I have put other questions to Mr. Topp, like, do you really stand for freedom, or do you just want to get back on the wrong side of prophecy, or tyranny, or whatever you want to call public service these days? The tools of the devil, the beast government, 1/3, 33% of the unholy trinity. Now in this video with Maverick Multimedia, who we'll get to in a sec maybe, if we have time, Maverick Multimedia is even worth mentioning. I think there is some newsworthiness to say about him. James Topp in this interview is compelling the CBC, the government propaganda CBC, to be able to tell his side of the story. Well, the CBC has reached out to you multiple times, and you decided to go against your oath to the Constitution and the rights protected therein, not granted, but protected by the oath you swore to uphold freedom of speech and freedom of the press. And really, freedom of the press is just freedom of speech. Recording in the public is freedom of speech. When a sworn officer or sworn member limits free speech from the free press, they are oppressing. Delete this tweet if you hate Section 2 of the Charter of Rights and Freedoms, Fundamental Rights. And for Maverick Media, more softballs for James Topp. When will he answer the tough question? I'd like to acknowledge that the United Nations knows all this is going on and condemns it, but has no real way of stopping tyranny. That being said, where there's a will, there's a way. Let's just read some of this here. The importance of free, uncensored, and independent press as a cornerstone of democratic societies. Conveying life-saving information, improving public participation, and strengthening accountability and respect for human rights. Might have to make this video again. My Wi-Fi went down, so I plugged in the hardwire, and the hardwire went down. So hashtag Article 19. Around the world, people have increasingly taken to the streets to demand their economic and social rights, as well as an end to discrimination and systematic racism, impunity, and corruption. However, journalists fulfilling this fundamental role of reporting on these social protests have become targets, many becoming victims of unnecessary and disproportionate use of force, arbitrary arrests, and criminal prosecution. Miss Bachelet added. Bachelet? I don't know. I don't know these people. I don't care to know them. All I know is they're a bunch of hypocrites. That's all I need to know. In addition to dissuading other journalists from critically reporting on relevant issues, such attacks weaken public debate and hamper society's ability to respond effectively to challenges, including SARS, she said. James Topp proves what he is. Someone who loves the government, loves oppression, until it's turned on to him and the people that he loves. It was all right when the indigent was people that were charged, like James Topp has been charged. It was okay when those were the indigent, or when we were targeting indigent farmers in Afghanistan to grow opium to fuel the opioid crisis at home. That's when state violence was okay, but now that it's him and people he cares about, now all of a sudden there's a problem with state violence. With the force of the state coming down on him and those he loves. It's a sad day. It's a sad day for the world, and especially for Canada. Another thing in this video, he'll answer the question why Mounties for Freedom is removed from this list of supporters and partners of Canada Marches. I guess the June 20th announcement about COVID policy and that the RCMP were now allowed to go back to work, so they no longer have to be in partnership with James Topp. They got their way. No need to keep fighting for freedom, or what they think is freedom. I guess Mounties don't need to stand with Veterans for Freedom anymore, who also condone state violence, obviously. Or Police on Guard. No, don't need to stand with their fellow peace officers behind James Topp. Or with the Mama Bears. The 3% got back to work at the RCMP. So, it's all good, right? Should we get to Rick Walker and his 25 years in the mainstream media, and we're supposed to believe all of a sudden he cares about telling the truth, or not reporting the mainstream media narratives, not buying into this false positive dependence on democracy. Now, as I've shown in a previous video, governments are colluding through intelligence agencies. Yes, we're giving billions of dollars to fuel the war in you know where, but meanwhile, our intelligence agencies are cooperating to run the world. World governments and governments at home feign division so that we remain divided. This is a tool of the unholy trinity. Religion, government, mainstream media. This is their tool. Also in the original video, which you can find in the description as always, and we'll have this video in the description as always, it talked about legislation in America where if you out a CIA agent, an intelligence agent, then it's like a crime punishable by 20 years. So I won't be saying anything about who could potentially have been the intelligence officer in a CTV newsroom for 25 years and who's continuing their efforts as a as an intelligence agency operative now to this day. Because I don't know if we're allowed to identify intelligence agents here in Canada, so I won't even risk it.
Fuck Justin Trudeau.
Fuck Justin Trudeau.
Freedom is a must.
Freedom is a must.
Stay strong, citizens.